So all of us must have seen and by far come across the impact and the power of civil servants, right? But what truly defines a great civil servant? It isn't intelligence alone, nor authority. It's the values that guide decisions when no rule book has all the answers. That's why, the Nolan Committee, the Hota Committee, the India's second Administrative Reforms Commission placed ethics at the heart of public service. Today, let's discover those values, not through theory, but through the remarkable stories of officers who lived them. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Inspired. I am Richa Sharma and I have something interesting for you today. In this episode, we will be learning some powerful stories of civil services, and for your help's sake, we will be giving a compilation of 100 plus such contemporary, unconventional, strong case studies as a downloadable PDF. This can be best utilized by anyone writing Mains 2026 or is interested in pursuing ethics answer writing to boost their scores. So let's go. Every great leader begins by understanding one person before trying to change millions. That one person is themselves. In February 2026, if you had visited Satna district of Madhya Pradesh, you might have been surprised to witness something unusual. So instead of traveling in an official government vehicle surrounded by protocol and security, IAS Officer Dr. Satish Kumar Sahu used to ride a simple bicycle to his office. Now to many, it appeared to be nothing more than a symbolic gesture. But for Dr. Sahu, it represented a much deeper philosophy of public service. During his interactions with the citizens, he had realized that official vehicles, security personnel, and administrative protocol often create an invisible barrier between the government and the people it serves. Citizens hesitate to approach authority, not because their problems are insignificant, but because the power often appears distant and intimidating. So rather than asking people to come closer to the administration, he decided to take the administration closer to the people. But was he backed by any scheme? Was he getting funded? Was there any lucrative offer? No. He just had one simple realization. The realization is that behavior of a public servant shapes the trust of the public far more than the authority of his office. Now, I request you to pause for a moment and think what matters to you more, someone's behavior or someone's authority flex, and let me know in the comments. And that is the essence of self-awareness which you've just realized right now. An officer who understands himself begins to understand the people that he serves. So we can map Dr. Satish Kumar Sahu with values like self-awareness, public trust, and spirit of service. But public administration is not built only on understanding ourselves. Merely self-awareness is not enough. Every passing day brings new responsibilities. Every morning, fresh files will arrive on collector's desk. So behind each file is a farmer struggling with water scarcity, a child waiting for a scholarship, a patient hoping for healthcare, or a village demanding better roads. Very soon, every civil servant discovers a difficult truth, that the governance is rarely about choosing the right and the wrong. It is more often about choosing between two competing rights. Protecting livelihoods may sometimes conflict with protecting environment. Strict enforcement of law may unintentionally hurt the vulnerable communities. So acting immediately may compromise fairness, while waiting for complete information may delay justice. These are certain ethical dilemmas that we read about and we also write about. At that moment, experience alone is not enough. The real test lies in the ability to think ethically. That lesson unfolded in one of India's oldest living cities, Varanasi, Uttar Pradesh. So let me take you there. Beneath the spiritual grandeur of the river Ganga, another story was unfolding. Groundwater levels were steadily declining as thousands of illegal borewells extracted water every single day. Environmental experts, warned that if the trend continued, the future generations could face severe water shortages. Yet for thousands of farmers and small businesses, those borewells were the only source of livelihood. Now here comes IAS Officer Himanshu Nagpal. He assumed responsibility and faced a dilemma with no perfect answer. See, conducting raids and sealing every illegal borewell would satisfy the law, but it could also destroy the livelihoods of countless families overnight. Ignoring the violations would protect today's economy, but place tomorrow's water security in danger. So instead of asking which decision is legally easiest, he asked a far more important question, which you should also be asking. Which decision serves the greatest public good? The principle of utilitarianism. So rather than relying only on punishment, the administration combined legal enforcement with public awareness campaigns, simplified the registration processes, and encouraged community participation in groundwater conservation. The objective was not merely to stop illegal extraction, but to build a sustainable relationship between development and environmental protection. So that one decision reflected moral reasoning. Because moral reasoning is not about finding perfect solutions, nobody can. It is about making the most ethical decision when every available option demands sacrifice. But knowing the right decision is only the beginning. Every ethical choice creates consequences. Honest decisions disturb powerful interests. Rules inconvenience those who benefit from shortcuts. Transparency challenges secrecy. And slowly, every officer reaches a moment where principles collide with pressure. Political pressure, corporate pressure, power pressure. Some are advised to remain silent. Others are encouraged to compromise just this once time. Many eventually convince themselves that changing the system is impossible. Yet, history remembers only those who refuse to surrender their values. Because after moral reasoning answers the question, what is right? Another question inevitably follows. Will you still choose what is right when it comes at a personal cost? The answer to that question is called integrity. Let's learn about this value through another interesting story. More than 3 decades earlier, another officer had already demonstrated what that answer looked like. Delhi 1993 Tihar Jail, at the time India's largest prison, had become a symbol of overcrowding, corruption, violence and hopelessness. Most people, believed the prison system could only punish the offenders. Very few believed that it could be reformative as well. And there comes the famous IPS, Dr. Kiran Bedi. She assumed charge as Inspector General of Prisons. She inherited an institution where corruption had become routine and reform seemed impossible. She could have chosen the safer path now, maintain the existing system, avoid any political confrontation, and simply complete the tenure. But the brave lady instead challenged decades of institutional inertia. Meditation programs inspired by Vipassana were introduced. Literacy and vocational training empowered inmates with skills for life beyond prison. Legal aid became more accessible to the prison mates. Transparency replaced secrecy, and rehabilitation gradually became as important as punishment. These reforms naturally attracted criticism. Many questioned why prisoners deserve compassion. Others believed, such changes would never succeed. But Dr. Bedi refused to compromise her convictions. She understood that prisons should not merely isolate the criminals from society, they should prepare them to return as responsible citizens. And that unwavering commitment to principles, despite criticism, opposition, personal pressure, became a living example of integrity. Because integrity is not demonstrated when circumstances are comfortable. Integrity is revealed when doing the right thing becomes the hardest choice you can make. And for every civil servant, that is perhaps the greatest lesson of all. Self-awareness teaches us who we are. Moral reasoning teaches us what is right. And integrity determines whether we have the courage to live by those decisions which are right. It is only after mastering these 3 lessons that an officer becomes ready for the next challenge. The challenge where standing for the truth may cost not just comfort, but an entire career. This is where the journey enters its next chapter, moral courage. Integrity definitely helps an officer to stand by what is right, but then life happens and life eventually presents even greater set of challenges. There comes a time when doing the right thing is no longer merely unpopular, it becomes personally expensive. Promotions could be delayed, powerful people may feel threatened, friends may advise compromise, family members may question whether the sacrifice is worth it or not, transfers become frequent, isolation becomes familiar, and slowly an officer begins to realize that the system rarely tests knowledge. It actually tests your character. And the real question is no longer, do you know what is right? The real question is, will you still defend the right when you are the only one left standing in isolation? Again, history remembers very few people because they were powerful. It remembers them because they refused to surrender. Alexander the Great. Perhaps no serving civil servant represents that truth better than the very famous IAS, you guessed it right, IAS Ashok Khemka sir. Over the course of his career in Haryana, he was transferred more than 50 times. Every transfer carried a silent message that compromise would have made your life easier. Why didn't you choose it? Yet, every posting carried the same response from Khemka, that rules are never negotiable. Whether investigating land transactions involving influential individuals or questioning administrative irregularities, he consistently placed the constitution above convenience and public duty above personal security. For many officers, repeated transfers could have become a reason to give up. But for Sir Ashok Khemka, they became reminders of why he had entered the public service in the first place. His office changed dozens of times, but his principles never changed even once. This is the true meaning of moral courage, of fortitude. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is refusing to allow fear to decide your actions. Yet, after years of service, every officer discovers another important truth. Governments are not transformed by rules alone. Files do not smile. Notifications do not cry. Circulars cannot understand pain. Every government order ultimately affects real human beings with fears, emotions, dreams, disappointments that no law book can fully capture. Do you agree with this? So now an IAS officer who only understands rules can administer a department, but an officer who understands people can transform lives. And that lesson unfolded in Telangana, where IAS officer Rajarshi Shah observed a troubling pattern inside the government schools. So let me take you there. Cases of stress, tobacco consumption, poor hygiene, emotional distress and declining confidence among adolescents were becoming increasingly common. Traditional disciplinary measures had produced very little change because they addressed behavior, not the emotions behind that behavior. Instead of asking how students should be punished, he asked, and see, this is the importance of asking the right question to oneself. He asked, why were they struggling in the first place? That single question changed the entire approach. Under his leadership, the Arogya Pathshala initiative was introduced, focusing on mental well-being, emotional resilience, hygiene awareness, nutrition and life skills. Teachers, doctors, counselors worked together to create an environment where children felt heard before they were judged. The results went far beyond improving school health indicators. Students developed confidence. Naturally, the class participation increased. Healthy habits replaced their risky behavior like tobacco consumption, beating each other. The program succeeded because it recognizes simple reality that people rarely change because they are forced. You can't beat them to change them. They change because they feel understood. That is the essence of emotional intelligence. The ability to recognize emotions of our own, those of the others, and use that understanding to make better decisions. But understanding emotions is only the beginning. The next step is learning to see the world through someone else's eyes. Every citizen who walks into the government office carries an invisible story. जैसे a farmer is worried about the next rainfall, so he wants to visit the DM. A mother is anxious about child's future. An elderly pensioner who has spent months waiting for approval. A pregnant woman traveling kilometers simply to access basic health care. Government files record names and numbers. They rarely record the exhaustion, the anxiety, the hope which is hidden behind those names. An ethical officer learns to read both of these things together. That lesson came alive in Odisha, where IAS Dibajyoti Parida noticed that pregnant women from remote villages were traveling nearly 75 kilometers just to undergo a routine ultrasound examination. Just imagine the amount of pain and struggle women have to go through. For many families, the cost of travel itself became a burden. So delays in diagnosis often increased health risk for both mother and the unborn children. So instead of asking women to travel longer distances, he decided that healthcare should travel to them through the Nirikhyana initiative. Portable diagnostic services and doorstep antenatal care were brought closer to the remote communities. What had once required an entire day's journey could now be accessed much nearer to home, reducing delays, lowering the cost, and ensuring timely maternal health care. It was more than an administrative innovation. It was an act of seeing the system through the eyes of the citizens. This, my dear friend, is known as, can you guess? This value is known as empathy. Empathy is not feeling sorry for someone. Arey bechari aa nahi pa rahi hai. It is understanding that other person's reality so deeply that your decisions begin to change because of it. Yet empathy by itself does not change society. Feeling another person's pain has meaning only when it inspires action. Because emotions without action remains just intentions. Public service demands something greater. It demands compassion. In Katni district of Madhya Pradesh, IAS Officer Avi Prasad confronted one of India's most persistent public health challenge of child malnutrition. So let us go to Katni to understand this. Government schemes already existed there. Budgets have been allocated, nutritional guidelines have been issued, yet hundreds of children continue to suffer because implementation alone could not replace community participation. So rather than treating malnutrition as only a government responsibility, Avi Prasad transformed it into a social movement. How? Naturally, he will be incorporating community-led initiatives, public participation, local adoption of severely malnourished children. Children themselves became partners in improving nutrition. So what began as an administrative intervention eventually evolved into a collective mission of care. That is compassion. Compassion is where empathy becomes action. It is where understanding another person's suffering is no longer enough. You choose to reduce it. And perhaps that is what separates a good administrator from a truly unforgettable one. Some officers enforce rules, some officers solve problems, but the finest officers leave behind something very, very deeply valuable. They leave behind hope. And I leave you with a hope that you will not only incorporate these stories in your answers, but also imbibe it in your personality. As a reward for coming till here, as promised, here I am attaching a compilation of 100 plus powerful stories of civil servants mapped with their individual ethical values in the description box below. So do check it out and let me know what was your favorite part of today's episode. I'm also open to know your favorite personality overall or any theme that you want me to cover in the next episode. So I'm winding up this episode on this note. Thank you so much.